Alright, so I picked up another project bike. I ran across this bike on day before, or actually Thanksgiving Day, and contacted the buyer and wound up picking it up. Got a really good price on it. It's a no start issue, and it has a couple little things wrong with it, but other than that, I think it's something we can work with and try to figure out. But it's a 98 Superhawk. Always wanted one of these bikes. I saw them when they were new and loved them and wanted to have one. This one's got some nice upgrades. We'll go over all of that and at a later time. Alright guys, so here's the Superhawk 996 that I picked up the other day. Just want to go over kind of some of the things that I found on it so far. As you can see, I've taken all the fairings, most of the fairings off of the rear fairings in the tank. I had a problem with it not turning over. It's like you turn the ignition on and all you get is the lights shutting off, but it won't crank. So I started checking things out, and the previous owner said he just put a new starter in it and still things wouldn't turn over. He got fed up with it. It sat for a while outside, unfortunately, and what I found was that the motor wouldn't turn over. It was locked. So what I did was I took the spark plugs out and sprayed some PB Blaster down in the cylinders, let it sit for a couple days, and got a pry bar on it, worked the motor back and forth, and was able to get the motor to freely spin over. So I think it just had a little bit of rust on the rings. Got the bike to where it will by hand turn over. But then in looking at some things, I found that the starter relay is kind of melted here. Come over to the regulator. The regulator appears to be bad because it's burnt. So what I did was I went ahead and bought a new rectifier regulator and the stator and a starter relay. So I'm going to put those on and see what we have. I'm sure that the stator probably went out, burnt up the regulator, and hopefully that's causing the no power. I'm going to replace those things and then see what happens, see if we get power to, see if it'll at least turn over. I'm going to do some tests on the stator before I put the new one in, just to check a couple things out. So that's kind of where we're at on it. Trying to shoot down what this electrical problem is. I can jump the relay and it will turn over, but it turns over very slow. Like there's still a draw, some kind of current draw somewhere on it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So let's get started. Alright guys, got the old stator out. When I test it, it's supposed to be getting 0.5 ohms from 0.2 to 0.5, and I was getting like around 0.2, but when I took this thing off, it just, to me, and I don't know, it smells burnt, if that makes sense. I know it's got oil on it and you smell the old oil, but to me I smell like burnt electric burn. So I already have the other one. I'm going to go ahead and put it in, and we'll go ahead and swap out the regulator also. And I don't have a new gasket for this. What I'm just going to do is just put it together for now the way it is, and it doesn't get a whole lot of oil in it. I may have a little bit of an oil leak. I'll get a gasket and replace it later. It wasn't that hard to take off. So so we'll move on to putting this new stator in. Alright, got the new stator put in the case. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bike, then we'll route the wires up through the frame. Alright, here's where we're at. I got the stator in, went ahead and put the new regulator on. That was very easy to put on. There's the new regulator. And here's the new starter relay that I put on. Now, here's the old starter relay, and the old starter relay was mounted in this direction. The positive to the battery went here, and went here, and the negative of the battery, or not the negative, but down to the starter was on this left side. Had a fuse in it, and everything plugged in. So I put the new starter relay in the same way as the old one. And when I did, I got absolutely nothing. Now this is a cheap starter relay off of Amazon, and I was getting no power at all to anything. So what I did was I started looking at things here, and I actually have the starter relay in backwards from the way the other one was. But when I tested from the fuse, the right side of the fuse, to these back two plugs, I had continuity there. But when I checked it on the, sorry, having GoPro issues here. So when I checked the other relay, the new relay, when I had it in here configured like this one, I had continuity from the left post. Everything was backwards, and what I found was that the new relay is backwards here, where it attaches to the battery and to the starter. Everything was backwards, or at least just these two posts. So I flipped it around the wrong way and hooked it up. Now the lights are working, and we have a good starter. Before, I wasn't getting, it wouldn't turn over at all. All the lights would just go dim. So I believe our problem was our stator, which is right here. Like I said, it smelled burnt when I took it out. Our stator, our regulator, and our starter relay was all fried. Now, I got a really good deal on this bike because the guy didn't want to mess with it anymore. And he had put a new starter in it, and he said it was cranking really slow, like it would barely turn over. And he got disgusted with it and just let the bike sit. When I asked him how long he had the bike, it's November now, and he said, I don't know, a year? I got it in August. So I was like, August to now is only a couple months. But I'm guessing he meant a year had passed, because he said he was tired of messing with it, and he'd been messing with it for a while. So I think this bike sat outside. He didn't have it covered or anything, and just sat in the weather for a year. When I got the bike, the battery that was in it, he said he'd put a new battery in it. That battery was completely toast. Shorted out, wouldn't take a charge at all. As soon as I put it on my battery tender, it wouldn't even register that it was plugged into a battery. So I'm sure with all these things being bad, it has fried some of the electric stuff, fried that battery, and that's the issues we're having. So seems like we got everything straight now. I'm going to put the tank back on, put some fuel in it, and we'll test fire. I showed you already, but not sure. it does turn over. So it turns over a lot better than it did. So we're gonna see if we can get this bike running, and then we'll go on to a lot more of the maintenance, probably do a valve adjustment. I'm thinking about, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this bike for a little while or if it's just going to be a flip, but I'm also thinking about getting the chain tensioner sort, the manual chain tensioners, because apparently these stock ones are junk. So we've got a lot more to come on this bike, but let's first put the tank on it, see if we can get it started now that we have it turning over, and kind of see how it sounds. All right, guys, let's see what we get, if we get anything. Ooh, that's promising. That's not. All right, now that we get fuel to it, seems like the starter doesn't want to turn over. I know this battery shouldn't be dead unless there's a drain on the circuit. All right, let me check a couple other things here. All right, guys, so here's where we're at. Same spot we were in before. I put the jumper cables from my truck on the bike. I was thinking maybe this battery ran down a little bit from sitting. This bike still doesn't want to turn over right. It turns and clicks. I even put the new starter back in it. And so I'm starting to wonder if the valves are really tight and it just doesn't want to turn over for that reason. So I'm not going to push it anymore. I'm going to put it aside, wait till I get some time to tear into it, and we'll do a valve adjustment on it. These things are famous for jumping the chain, having valve issues anyhow. I don't want to push it and damage anything. So going to wait for now, and we'll be back on this bike soon.